Okay, okay, my name's Keith Falconer. I'm the PGDE course tutor, and I'm glad to see, well, I can't see you, but it's, yeah. So what I'll do is I'm going to give you a short presentation on the PGDE course on computing science at Strathclyde. And like Leah said, if you've got any questions, we're more than happy to answer them if we can, and if not, we'll certainly get back to you. So just to start off, my name, like I said, Keith Falconer. I'm a teaching fellow at Strathclyde. Before working at Strathclyde, I was a computing teacher for a number of years, and we currently have a good cohort of 23, 24 students, and that is our average number each year. If you've got any inquiries regarding applications to the university, the email address is there for you, and they'll always get back to you quite promptly with any queries. What we've got there is a slide on the history of Strathclyde. We have been a school of education for a number of years, and it stems back to the David Stowe era. And we used to be based at Jordan Hill campus, and 4 or 5 years back, we moved into the Faculty of Education in the Lord Hope building in the main campus at Strathclyde University. And the slide says, we've had quite a transition over the years, but we've now got 101 academic staff in the School of Education. So quite a history there, and it's certainly one of the reasons why you should consider coming to Strathclyde to do your PGDE. Okay, so what we've got here is the teaching journey, and we have a number of options at the university to become a qualified teacher. The one we want to talk about here today is the PGDE, Postgraduate Diploma in Education. Now, people used to talk about it as being the postgrad. A number of years ago, it was a postgraduate certificate in secondary education, but now the course is called the Postgraduate Diploma in Education. It lasts 10 months, and at the end of the course, you're hopefully going to achieve provisional registration with the GTCS. The GTCS is the General Teaching Council for Scotland, and every teacher in Scotland has to be registered with the GTCS to be able to teach in a Scottish secondary or primary school for that matter. Now, at the end of the 10 months, you can either go down the route of what they call the TIS. You sometimes get referred to as a TIS. It's a teacher induction scheme. And that scheme guarantees you a year employment, 1 year's employment, to get you through what they call the probationary period. And that probationary period, at the end of which, on completion successfully, you'll then be a fully registered teacher. Or for some people, the flexible route is more appropriate and maybe something they want to consider. And the flexible route means that you find your own work, so to speak, on the supply route, and you accumulate a number of hours to get yourself the full registration that route. Now, that route may take you up to 18 months, possibly 2 years, because you have to be teaching the subject you want to qualify in. You may be doing a bit of supply, but the supply work has to be in the subject you're teaching in. Now, it suits some people to do it that route, but the majority of people, after completion of the PGDE, go on to what they call the TIS route. And in the TIS scheme, you are provided with a mentor, you have support, you have probationer days, and the scheme is designed to give you as much support as possible to get you your full registration. Okay. So the PGDE course overview, it's a 36-week course, 18 weeks on campus, 18 weeks in school placement, and it's accredited by the General Teaching Council for Scotland. And our PGDE course has just been re-accredited last year. So every number of years, I think it's 6 years, then the course has to be re-accredited from the GTCS. And that's to take into account all the new teaching practices, all the new research that's gone out there. And so they get re-accredited. We've just been re-accredited last year. And one of the positive opportunities you have when you come to Strathclyde is you have the opportunity to get 120 credits at master's level when submitting your assignments. Now, you don't have to go down that road. You can take the diploma, but the majority of students that I work with go for the master's level, and they take these credits away with them. And the thinking behind that is that you may, not necessarily in your probation year, but in a later year, come back and use these credits to get yourself an MEd. So you may want to consider getting your MEd at Strathclyde. We do some modules towards that online, and there are some on campus. But I think that is a great opportunity for people while they're on campus and doing your studying to submit your work at master's level, and that way you can leave the university with 120 credits at master's level. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the course structure, and what we have is professional learning through inquiry. You've got professional skills, that's curriculum and pedagogy, and you've got educational studies, that's professional values. Now, these together give you your PGDE. Now, our own subject, computing, we study that on a Tuesday on campus, although currently we're not doing that, but that is what they call the curriculum and pedagogy day for us. And the PLTE, well, you'll get a lot of acronyms, but the professional learning through inquiry currently is on a Monday. So every day normally has a module attendance requirement. So that is basically the course structure. Professional learning through inquiry is really important because as you enter the teaching profession, there is a requirement for you to carry out professional inquiries into your practice, as well as looking at the bigger picture. So you have to be able to carry out these professional inquiries. And what we aim to do is give you the skills to do these professional inquiries really, really well. Okay. So the course content. Now, we had some technical problems with my presentation. I'd emailed it to my university email address, and we've had some problems with that. So there's some bits and pieces missing in this bit. So what I was going to do, I'll just go back one a wee second. What we will be studying on our PGDE Computing Science is we look at databases, we look at programming. In particular, the current flavour of programming at the moment is Python. The Python has taken over from VB, Visual Basic, but Python is one of the most popular programming languages currently in Scottish schools. We also look at web design and databases. These are very important curricular areas that we teach, and they're what the pupils will be getting taught at National 4, National 5 higher and Advanced higher. We'll also look at the BGE, the Broad General Education, and the Broad General Education looks at the experiences and outcomes that are created with evidence from the Education Scotland. They provide us with the benchmarks and the E's and O's, as we call them. So unfortunately, I can't provide you that information on the slide, but certainly I can give you if you want more information on that, I can get that to you should you need it. But what we do within the course, we look at the curriculum areas both at national qualification and the broad general education, which will enable you to teach from S1 to S6. We look at the course content, which is in the national qualifications, that's provided by the SQA, Scottish Qualification Authority. And then we'll look at the broad general education, and that's provided in some areas of our subject from Education Scotland. So we'll look at the course content, we'll look at the course specification, and we'll also look obviously how to teach this. It's great having the knowledge, but we also need to look how to teach it, and that comes under the pedagogy part of our subject area. Okay, so with regard to placements, what happens is you, for secondary, you're on 2 placements. So 2 different schools, and the reason for that is to give you 2 different learning experiences. So, for instance, you may be in an independent school, or you may be in a public sector school, or you may be in 2 independent. It's really to give you 2 different experiences. And the idea is that you can use these different experiences to help you move forward into your probation year. So your first placement school A is 8 weeks, and that usually finishes in about Christmas time. And then you have your Christmas break, and then what we do is we come back and we're back on campus for a period of time, and then when you go back out again, to a second school. One thing I would like to say regarding the school placements is that there is a requirement from the General Teaching Council that your placement may be 90 minutes from your home address. So it is important when you make your application that you make sure, if you are successful, that you put down your home address and you make sure it's the address you're going to be staying at during any placements, because it is a 90-minute travel requirement, just to make that clear. So some people are very fortunate. It might be 15, 20 minutes. Other people, it could be an hour. Sometimes people are a bit longer. So assessments, people will be asking the question, how am I assessed on this course? How am I assessed? And obviously that's going to give some people some sort of, not concerns, but certainly food for thought. So what happens is, with regard to placement, you are assessed by a visiting tutor. So like myself, I'll come out and observe a lesson. The school will write a report on you, how you're progressing, and how we look at these placement experiences. We look at you against the SPR, what they call the Standard for Provisional Registration, which is what the General Teaching Council requires you to achieve to go on to the next stage of your teaching career, which is your probationary period. So everything we look at is measured against the SPR. I don't want to go into too much detail at the moment, but what we do is we give you support, we give you advice throughout that placement experience. You'll have a mentor in school. You'll be given feedback regularly in school, so there'll be lots of support out there when you go out in placement. Your next sort of assessment part of the course is the assessment of other modules. Now, you're going to be doing these 3 modules I spoke about earlier. These are essay type modules. So you'll be pleased to know there's no exams with the PGDE. They're all essays. So for the professional learning through inquiry, it's an essay. So you attend a number of lectures, and we also meet up after these lectures, and we talk about some of the topics with regard to subject content, with regard to computing science content, how it applies some of these theories. And then at the end of the module, you'll do your essay, you'll submit your essay. And so that is the essay part, that's the sort of theory element. And then what you have, the final bit there is you've got your coursework and attendance. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure you're attending properly, make sure you've got a good attendance. And also the bit there it's summarising is you've got the opportunity to achieve level 11 masters, level 11 masters. So you've got achieving 120 credits, either a mix of diploma masters or all masters or all diploma. It's your decision, but that's an overall view of the assessment that takes place. You've got your placement experience, assessment of modules, and coursework and attendance. So it's quite, and the other point I would make is all these assessments are throughout the period of the course. They're not all at once or a big mass at Christmas, whatever. They're spaced out throughout the year. So the students at the moment are preparing to do another module, which will be their final module, and they've already completed 2. Okay, now there are some people who may consider doing dual registration, and we are fortunate that computing, some people do business in computing, some people have done maths in computing, some people have done physics in computing, and providing that the timetable allows, then you have an opportunity to do, and your degree as well has enough subject content to be able to do the dual registration. And it says there that probationers who hold teaching qualifications in 2 subjects can elect to do this year in both subjects, successfully getting standard in the both subjects. So normally, if you're doing it in 2 subjects, you'll do your first placement in your first subject, then the second one and then your third one, you'll come back to your first one, but that can be explained to you if that was something that was interest to you. Okay. So the entry requirements for the course. What I would say to you, and unfortunately, like I said, my previous slide where it talked about the requirements for computing, I thought I'd mention that just now. There is a requirement you have in your degree, computer systems, software development, and databases or web design. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm happy to look at most transcripts, but I would say the main focus for me is software development is a major part of the curriculum at the moment. And it's also, if you on the GTCS teaching requirements for computing, it's in software development. Databases and the web design are very important, and computer systems. So I can look and consider all transcripts when it comes to meeting the entry requirements. So any queries regarding your transcripts, please drop the university an email, and I'll certainly have a look at it if you've got any queries on that. So the other thing I would say here is that higher English is a requirement, and Nat 5 Maths or equivalents. So some people have got different qualifications. For instance, I know some people were doing Communications 4 and Literature 1 for the higher English, and there's other people doing access courses. But if you've got any questions on that, I would again ask the admissions people, and they would keep you right. So in the red part there, it's saying insert subject specific credits. My feeling is that I would be looking for a good knowledge and understanding of programming, in particular Java, VB, Python, and databases, web design, and computer systems. As long as you've got object-oriented language understanding and the other subject areas I've talked about. And again, I'm quite happy to look at anybody's transcripts. Okay, so the process as it stands at the moment is your application is made, and the admissions people will look at it, and obviously you send your documents in to support your application. These documents could be the degrees transcript, obviously your maths and English, as well as that. I would say that if you're at university just now, some people are that have applied, then obviously you state that in your application, and it may be, if you were successful, it would be a conditional offer on achieving your degree. And then what we do is if after looking and reviewing your application, then if you're successful at that stage, we would then invite you to interview. We currently are doing interviews online, and if you're successful or unsuccessful, we certainly try to get a decision to you as soon as possible. Okay, so the decision process is basically successful, conditional offer. So you meet all the conditions. That means you've got your degree acceptable to university, you've got your maths and English. It may be so you've got a conditional one. Sorry, I'll take that back. Conditional offer would be if you didn't have your maths or English, or your degree hadn't been completed. So then that deadline for that is July 2021. So we may put a condition on, for instance, if you've not, say you're going to complete your degree, or possibly you've not achieved your Nat 5 or whatever it is, that condition's been set. And then that conditional offer we put out. Your unconditional offer is that you meet all the requirements. The degree transcripts is suitable, and your maths and English is suitable. And unsuccessful would be you're unsuccessful possibly because you were unsuccessful interview, or possibly you didn't meet one of the conditions. So the fees and funding. Now, the Scottish students are eligible for government funding for the tuition fees, and that's through SAS. international, EU and the rest of the UK tuition fees for the PGDE are yet to be confirmed, and when available fees will be published. Now, that's the website there to look at. These are when the most up-to-date fees are published. And information on scholarships can be found on the web link below for the 2021 entry. Now, just before we stop there, because maybe it should have been put in the slide, I'm not sure, but the STEM bursary was something that some people were applying to in previous years, and that is maybe something that should have been in the slide regarding bursaries. But there's a number of criteria that has to be met for that, but it may be something of interest for people that might be considering that. So you could find helpful information on the course webpage and the PGDE FAQs. And you can also drop it, go to the email admissions. So that's me finished for now. Certainly more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith. That was very helpful. I hope everyone found that presentation of use. So we've had a couple of questions come in, but just before we start, I thought I would just touch again on the STEM bursary. So that's been, I think it's been running the last maybe 3 years. Yep. Would that be right? Yeah, 3. I don't know that it's been confirmed yet for this year. I was trying to just have a quick Google there just to see, as far as I was aware, it hadn't been definitely confirmed yet. But if you go to the Skills Development Scotland website and you keep an eye on there when it is confirmed, if it is confirmed, the information would be on there and how to apply would be on there as well. Hopefully we will get information that that's going ahead again, because it was, a very, very helpful amount of money. It was is it 10,000? Is it?
No, I think it was more than that actually, Leah. I'm not sure. I don't want to quote figures in case I'm wrong, but I know I had 8, maybe 10 students last year applied and received the bursary. So I think one of the criteria was that you were leaving a job to enter the teaching profession. I'm sure that was the case. I know I've had 1 or 2 applicants this year who have said they've looked into it and they think it's going to be made available, but they weren't absolutely sure. So yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll receive information about that soon. From memory, I think it does usually come round about the springtime. We kind of hear about it. So it's funding from the Scottish Government. So we just have to wait until they give us the information whenever they decide if that's going ahead or not. So, but check out the Skills Development Scotland website, or if you just type in STEM Bursary Scotland into Google, then it usually comes up with a couple of hits on the Scottish Government website. So keep an eye on there. So we've had a couple of questions come in. So we'll just start from the top. So we have a question from Ray. Ray says, to get into the PGDE in computing, is a bachelor's degree, level 9, accepted when delivered by Napier University?
Yeah, there was some sort of misconception about, for people for a number of years, that you need to have an honours degree. A BSc is absolutely fine. There's no requirement to have an honours degree. The BSc is fine. What you do need to do is to send in or make sure your transcript meets the requirements. So my advice to you would be to drop or send in your transcript, and I would be more than happy to have a look at it and give you back advice on that. So yeah, more than happy to look at a BSc degree, no problem.
Okay, Ray, if you're able to get a copy of your transcript, you can usually request that from your university, so from Napier, or if you're studying at the moment, you might just be able to go onto your online learning environment, your virtual environment, and pull off your grades from there, and we'll be able to take a look at them. So if you email them to us, I'll pop the email in the chat, then you can ping that over to us, and then we can take a look at it in the admissions department, or if we need Keith's advice, we would send that on to him as well. I did put into the chat function the computing science webpage, and it has a list of all the modules that you would need. So Keith already explained it, but just in case you want it written down, so like the specific credits we're looking for in databases and software development,
that's it.
Web design, it's all on there, so you can have a wee look at your own transcript as well. And just maybe you could touch on this, Keith, but
yep.
In the instance where people maybe are just short, maybe like 20 credits or something, you can look to top them up.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah. So
be able to give you advice on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had it in the past where possibly somebody's been a bit short on the database. So there might be a few credits, so they maybe need 15 credits. So we give them advice on where to go to get the 15 credits to top it up. So you may be nearly there, but not quite there. But we're more than happy to give you advice to get the required credits.
Yeah. So it's a maximum of 30 credits that you can top up.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Ray, but if you've got any others, then please just ask us again. We've got plenty of time to answer questions. So I've got another question from Scott. So Scott wants to know about the 90-minute rule to the placement. When does that address need to be set, as I am considering moving but unsure when or if I will move at all? So
I was going to say, what we would do is we would look at your application, obviously, because the university has your address. We would pass that address on to the GTCS. So what you would need to make sure is that when you have your more permanent address or where you're going to be in term time, you need to inform us so we can let the GTCS know. And what I mean by that is when you start on campus, for example, I would imagine that would be your permanent address. You need to let us know. So you could, it's really important. And some students have sort of forgot that. And, I've just moved over here now, and they've not told us. So it is important you let us know as soon as possible your permanent address when you move to the university. And that gives the GTCS time. But yeah, that's my advice to you, to try and get that address as soon as possible to us. Okay.
Generally, it's over just maybe like a couple of weeks before the course begins, so late summer. The head of the course, Catherine Whitley, will write out to you via a letter, via email, and she'll ask you to go to a website. So the system that the General Teachings Council for Scotland set up is called SPS, and they ask you to fill out a form with your address on it then. So likely you're looking at, Scott, like if you were moving now, that wouldn't be a problem. So if the address on your application is different to at the time when this comes out, the request to fill in the SPS form, that would be fine as long as you fill out the correct address form on the SPS. If you happen to move between the time of filling out that SPS form and the first placement coming around, then you would really need to let us know right away so that we could write over to the GTCS and see if there was a way that we could get that altered for you. Hopefully you wouldn't be moving drastically miles and miles away that it would affect that. But yeah, we would be able to you would have until the summer sort of, if you like. Hopefully you would know your address by then. Okay, so we have a question from Nicole. For degrees from universities abroad, Nicole's in Italy, do you only need the transcript with English translation? Do you take into account work experience? I am currently employed as a software developer and I'm considering a career change into teaching. So from the admissions point of view, when we require you to send in your transcript, yes, we would need a copy of it in English. Please, if you can provide that. So we would like to see your Italian copy so that we know that's the original document that's dated, stamped, on the right header, etc. And then if you can provide us a translated copy. Sometimes we do have some, if you're really struggling to get it translated, one of my colleagues speaks some Italian, so we are able to work with you there. But it's the easiest if you can just go ahead and get that translated. You've got plenty of time to do that if you're thinking about that now. As for the work experience side of things, we do need you to have some formal qualification in computing that meets those standards, because the entry requirements are set by the General Teaching Council for Scotland, so we can't accept work experience in place of, but it's great if, you know, that's in addition. Maybe you want to say a wee bit more about that, Keith?
No, I was just going to say, Leah, yeah, we can't accept that in place of, but what it would do is it would strengthen any application, and it would certainly be useful in a school placement environment where you can bring that work experience into the school. We were just talking about that the other day there to the students about the importance of bringing some other skills and background information into and practical experiences into the school placement, and like I say, to support your application. So although we can't take that experience in place of qualifications, it certainly is a good thing to support your application, if that makes sense.
Yes, okay. And also, Nicole, just maybe to remind you of what was just said a couple of questions ago, that maybe if you've got most credits in your degree, but maybe you're lacking something, you were hoping the software development part of your work experience could top up, you could maybe look into doing a wee top up there with the OU or another course, and we can help you find the right course if you just let us know. So it might be an idea for you to send us in your transcript. We can have a look and see what the baseline is there where you're at, and then we can go from there. So we've got another question from Nicole. Do we still apply via UCAS even though the deadline closed on the 15th of January? Also, if we are unsuccessful, can we reapply in the future? So the UCAS deadline this year, it was the 29th. It's usually the 15th every year, but it was the 29th of January this year due to COVID and schools being shut, etc. So yes, you're correct, that has passed. However, for some subjects, we can accept applications beyond that deadline. There's other PGDE subjects where we can't because we receive so many applications that we couldn't take anymore in ratio to the places we have to offer. However, for computing, we will be able to continue accepting applications hopefully for a while, but we would always encourage you just to get your application in as soon as possible. It lets you get it in plenty of time and do anything else that you might need wise in that time period. If you're unsuccessful this year, then absolutely you can apply again next year or the year after or whenever. We would encourage you to seek feedback from us if you've become unsuccessful. Then we can let you know why we made you unsuccessful, and if there is an opportunity for you to go away and do further study, or maybe you were unsuccessful at interview, we can give you some tips and try and work with you there to better your application for the next year. Okay, another question from Ray. Your website for the programme says that apart from the academic qualifications, we will need to demonstrate evidence that you have experience working with children in a secondary school setting or related context. How can we get experience if we can't teach before entering the programme?
So, sorry, I was going to say that what we mean by that is if you've had any experience of maybe popping into a school, just to now currently it's not, it might not be possible in the current climate, but what we have had is people pop into school or maybe even volunteer to see what, what we're looking for is you to have an experience of a teaching environment. So you've actually had that experience and say, oh, these bells ringing all the time. Oh, all these kids rushing about. Is this really for me? So you actually see it for real life. It may be you've also maybe been part of a scout group. You may have been a leader in some other youth organisation. You've had actually the experience of working with children. And I think that's something that we want you to have possible experience of. I know what you're saying when you say, how can you get into school if you're not a teacher? But there are ways of visiting schools, and it may, I understand, might be difficult at the moment, but it may be you could talk to someone that you know that is a teacher. But what we're looking for is you having some experience or knowledge of what goes on a school day. It may be the other way we look at some applications as well, where someone's done a bit of research and maybe looked at the SQA and said, look, what is it actually I'm teaching in the school? What does this course content is? What is it I'm going to be doing in the school? What subject knowledge do I need? So it's actually looking wider than just actually finishing my degree, I'm going to do teaching. But what am I teaching? What is actually going on? So yeah, we have got it on the website, but I know it's difficult at the moment. but we're trying to look at you as an individual who's actually looked at the bigger picture, where you can say, well, you know what, I've had a look at the SQA, I've had a look at Education Scotland, I've looked at some of the GLOW meets or whatever else is going on, but I've actually looked wider than actually just my application.
Absolutely. Lots of students will just call up, local schools around them, local high schools, and they'll say, hi, I want to, do a PGD and I'm looking to get a wee bit of experience. Can I come and volunteer in your classroom? We get, for some of our other PGD subjects, it's essential that you get that experience. And as far as I'm aware, schools tend to be quite receptive to that. It might just be like coming in for an hour one afternoon every week for a couple of weeks, and that just gives you an insight into, like you said, the classroom, to see, is this what I want to do, and observe a teacher and the different methods that they use, etc. And it doesn't have to be within a school setting either. It could be that you volunteer, say, with the Boys Brigade or the Brownies, or it could be that you work at a youth club, or you do some sort of charity work that involves some form of teaching with school-age children. And again, it doesn't have to be in a secondary school. It could be with early years. It could be with primary school. It's just so that we know that you can relate to children and translate some form of learning experience to your future teaching skills.
I was going to say as well, Leah, that the idea is that remember, you're making a big commitment here. You're actually making a big commitment. You're saying, I'm going to go and study, I'm going to go on my probation year, and I'm going to make a career commitment here. So it's for your benefit as well to say, look, you know what? Yeah, this is really what I want to do. This is really what I want to do. I've been out here and I'm really excited, passionate about my subject, but I want to be able to teach it. And that's the idea behind it. So it's important you get that opportunity.
Absolutely. Just to let you know, yeah, we are aware that right now many schools, because of COVID, can't have external visitors come in. However, hopefully things will change maybe over the summer, and not the summer, but the early spring, sorry. So hopefully things will change and schools might be able to let people in again. So even if you call round just now and say that I'm interested and I realise I can't come in just now, they might say, if things allow, if restrictions are relaxed, you can come in May or June, etc. So just keep asking and keep trying through the summer, and it might be useful. You might not gain experience before interview, but it might be that you can say at interview, well, actually, I couldn't get into a school just now, but I've secured a couple of weeks before the PGDE course actually starts. Okay. So we've got a question from Ian. He's asking, how far back are honours degrees useful?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I've had applications last year where it goes back 15, 20 years. The degree itself is, part of the process, but what I want to see at interview is your knowledge and understanding of the subject we're going to be teaching in the school, as well as your commitment to the teaching profession. So if the degree's gone back a number of years, I'm more interested in the content of what you studied at the time. So if it was computer systems or software development, I know some of the technologies moved on, but in the same token, some of the basic principles are still the same. So I need to look at the degree and have a look at it, the transcript, and be confident myself that what you studied is still relevant in today's schools, so to speak.
Okay. Okay. Scott's asking, what things would you advise learning as a sort of homework before we start? I'm thinking Python specifics.
Right. So there's a website called WS3 Schools. So I could put that in the chat. Can I put that in the chat?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So WS3 Schools. So if you just Google WS3 Schools, what happens there, it will take you into a website, and almost every software subject area is on there that will teach you. So we use that in schools as a revision resource for pupils. So you'll get Python on there, you'll get SQL, you'll get MySQL, you've got a number of programs and it steps you through there to help you learn. And it's useful as well for some of the current students who've maybe been away from doing SQL for maybe 6 or 7 years. And it just reskills them a little or upskills them, and it sort of refreshes them a bit. So WS3 Schools for me would be a good starting point, and you could have a look there and you'll get a lot of useful information on there as well.
Okay, great. Question from Ian. I have a 2-1 honours degree from 2005. With the most modules I'm applying probably next year is currently doing higher English. So just want to check that my transcript, just want to check to see if my transcript has the right modules from Caledonian University. So Ian, if you want to send us over your transcript, then we can take a wee look at it for you. What I'll do is I'll just put the I'll put the email address in the chat function just now. If you send it over to this email address, then we will be happy to look at that for you. What I'm maybe saying, you've mentioned that you're doing higher English. If your higher English is going to be complete before the PGDE course begins, that's the end of August, then you can apply now with the higher English pending, same for higher maths, same if your degree's pending. So say you're sitting your degree and you're in 4th year right now, or 3rd year, sorry, and you're due to graduate in the summer, you can still apply now as long as you have all of those qualifications before the PGDE course starts at the beginning, at the end of August. So in that case, if you applied and your successful interview, would be making you a conditional offer, and the condition on that offer would be, so using Ian as an example, would be that you gained the higher English, and you would need to provide proof of that higher English to us before August. So if that applies to you, Ian, if your higher English is going to be complete before the end of August, then you can absolutely apply this year if you want to.
I was going to say as well, Leah, that a number of people have been doing the Aberdeen University Access course. So that worked well last year. I had a number of applicants in January who managed to complete the requirements by the entry date of August. So that was another option for people who were thinking about, oh, will I be able to manage it in time, where they did this online access course at Aberdeen University, which met our requirements, I believe. So
yes, it does. So the access course, so there's one in English, which has to be at SCQF level 6, and the one for maths, which has to be at SCQF level 5. Keith says it's all online and it is a flexible program, so I believe you can do it within your own time scale. So maybe you're working right now and you can only study in the evening, or maybe you're studying and you've got to do it alongside there. So yeah, it's a very good program, and I think you can start it at any time. It's not some college courses, they'll start in January and it'll be too late to apply to them now. But I believe that one you can pick up anytime. It's just the exam part of it that set points, which obviously is very understandable. They've got to have grade that at certain points in the year. So you might be able to still apply for that now and complete it between now and August, but you'd need to check that out with the University of Aberdeen. But if you just type in University of Aberdeen Access English, it pops up in Google. And that's definitely one we recommend. It absolutely meets all of the requirements, same for the maths. So I put the email address in and I sent it to me and you, Keith, instead of sending it to everyone, but hopefully you can see it now. So sorry about that.
So I was going to say, I've put my email address in the chat just in case anybody had any queries about the degree transcripts. They could, if they're wanting some specific information, I will get back to them. So I can have a look at their degree, so it's not a problem.
Absolutely. Okay, so hopefully that answers Ian's question. Okay, another question. English is my first spoken language, and I have had top grades in high school and my 2 years in uni in Switzerland in the subject. Plus, I have several IT qualifications, Microsoft, Oracle, and Java under my belt. Would these be enough for the English level? Okay, so there's 2 English qualifications that we need for international students. So there's higher English. So when we say higher English, sorry for anyone who's not sat their high school and here in Scotland, higher English is a high school level qualification. Now, if you've got a qualification from another country in high school English, then yes, we can look at that as long as it's the equivalent of, it's at the same level as our higher English. Now, for us to determine that, we need you to send us a copy of your high school diploma. We'll need the certificate and the sort of transcripts part of it, which shows us what subjects that you sat within that. And then we use an international qualification comparison website called NARIC, and we have access to that here, and then we can see if your qualification is the same as a higher English or a National 5 Maths, and we can let you know from there. Again, that's something that we're happy to check if you send it over to the website, not the website, the email address that we gave you. However, for those who come from a country where English is not the first language, we also need you to prove your English language proficiency, and that's different from the higher English that I've just spoke about. So the English language proficiency would usually be sitting an IELTS test. Now, Ray, you've said that English is your first language, and you've said you've went to university in Switzerland, but I don't know if you're Swiss or not. If you're from another international country where English is the first language, then you shouldn't need the IELTS or comparable qualification. However, in some cases as well, we can accept other qualifications, alternatives to IELTS, or if you've studied at a university level within another institution where the mode of instruction was English, then we can look at that as well, but it has to be from a verified institution. And that's not to meet our own standards, that's to grant your student visa. It's all related to that, and that's why sometimes, even though you might think, well, I speak great English, but it needs to be sort of a proven qualification to meet the visa requirements. I don't want to get bogged down on all of that. Sorry, it's quite maybe a wee bit complex, but happy to look into that for you. If you want to send us a wee email just about your specific situation and some of your qualifications, then I can look into that for you. So Ray's got back to us just to say that he's Swiss, but he speaks French, but he has UK settled status. So again, Switzerland has a more unique fee status when compared to other EU countries as well. Again, I don't want to get bogged down in the EU and the Brexit and all of that stuff. But we can certainly look into that for you, Ray. If you want to send us over a copy of some of your qualifications, I can get back to you to let you know what it is that you need if you don't have the requirements already. Okay, so Nicole said, I already have the English translated transcript actually, but I have lost my diploma. I graduated a while ago. So I guess is that maybe your high school diploma that you're talking about there, Nicole? Or if it's the sort of degree certificate or degree parchment that you've lost, you should be able to contact your university and ask them to resend it to you. It might be a digital copy. Digital copy is fine, as long as it's, we can clearly tell that it's from your university. If the transcript also has your final degree award on it, whether you've got a 2-1 or however your system's graded, the GPA, etc., we might be able to accept that without the diploma or the certificate option if it has all the information that we need on it. So we don't need this right now either. Like, we would need this along the line. We need to see the transcript to see if you're eligible to go to interview, but we need the diploma part probably a wee bit later. So we'll try and work with you to work that one out, but maybe if you send us a copy of what you do have, then we could see if that will be sufficient or not. And if not, then we can let you know if you're going to need to go back to your university for them to send you additional documents. Okay. So Ray said, to follow up on my question, would the BSc computing from Napier be enough to prove my level 6 English competency? Yes. So because you've studied at a UK institution, that should be fine to meet your the visa, the student visa. That should be fine. Ray's also asking, I used to lead for several years an adult choir and also a Sunday school choir as well. The latter were 6 to 16-year-olds. Would that be enough for the school age experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're looking for. Yeah, I'm happy with
that. So Nicole has asked, for the maths SCQF level 5 requirement, does it apply if we studied maths as part of our university degree at a higher level?
Yeah, now we can look at that as well, because the English is really, really, important. But what I have done in the past, when the degree has I can look at the content there, and the maths, if there's enough maths content in the degree, then we have looked at that in the past. So it was something we could look at it possibly. So yes, we could look at it, Yeah.
Okay, a question from Ian about placements. Another question on placements. If we are on the course, can I be placed at a school with a relative?
Now, I was going to say that Catherine Whitley, the course leader, often says at her lectures that if there's a reason why you can't go to a placement, for instance, a relative working at the school, or for whatever reason you believe you're not happy with going to school, you need to let us know. That may be a reason you feel uncomfortable or whatever, but it could be a reason you need to inform someone like Catherine, look, I have a relative working there or whatever. So yeah, it'd be worthwhile letting someone know about that, definitely.
Yeah. Similarly, if you've got children, they attend that school, it would be inappropriate for you to go to the same school and teach in the class where your child is, for obvious reasons. So yes, if you happen to be allocated that school, then you would need to highlight that to Catherine, and we would sort that out with the GTCS. He's came back and he specifically mentioned his nephew. Yeah, so where their relatives at that school, it's not really appropriate for you to be teaching them. So yeah, you would highlight that to us at the time. It might also be worth pointing out as well that these placements are allocated by this automated system, so the STS system, and that takes. It's not just Strathclyde students, it's students from all the other institutions that offer PGDs. They all go into this one sort of like auto-generated system, if you like, and it'll give everyone out of school. You cannot request a school, so you can't say, oh, I've got a good relationship with a school down the road from me, or my husband works in this school, or whoever. We're not able to take in special requests like that either. It is generated, to be fair to everyone, that they get a school come from this system. So you would be able to, Ian, make a request to go to the school where your nephew is.
I was going to say, Leah, that as well, is that some students may find they're lucky and it's 15 minutes from their home address, and other people it's an hour and 15 minutes. It's really up to the system what school it generates. The other thing I would say with ourselves being computing students is that you need to have a school that's willing to take students. So what we need in the first place to get schools to accept students, and then what happens is we need to try and place students in these schools that have an appropriate travelling distance. So it's quite a complex, it's not an easy task. And like Leah said, we're talking about all the students in Scotland here. We're not just talking about Strathclyde students. So be mindful of that when, if you are successful and you're sitting beside someone that's got a placement 15 minutes away and someone else is an hour away, it's nothing to do with the university.
Right, so Ray's asked another question about placements. Can we choose the school we want to work in? So sorry, there's maybe been a time delay, but we've just chatted about that's not possible. Just bearing in mind that if they made one special request for somebody, they would have to do it for everybody, and we're talking thousands and thousands of students here, so it's not possible to make these requests. I've been in contact with some schools, and they actually told me to contact them immediately after the first year for placements during the probationary year. So again, they wouldn't have any say in that, unfortunately. they wouldn't be able to select the students that come to them either. It's just, you know, it's just a lottery in this case. Obviously, if they happen to have a vacancy after you've qualified, then you can absolutely apply to that school. If they're looking for a teacher, then you can apply to a vacancy. There's no problem there, but you can't choose your probationary school either. Again, it's the same system, is it?
Yeah, I was going to say, Leah, if you go down the alternative route, but what I mentioned earlier was alternative route is quite a lengthy process on occasions, where if you go down the TIS route, that's a teacher induction scheme, you've got a guaranteed year's employment within one school, and that you've got support, you've got mentors, and the idea is you get through your probation within that year. If you want to go and pick a school to do your probationary period in, well, that's a longer process, and there's no guarantee of employment. You're on supply list, and unless you get a contract, it's not the ideal way, and there's not many people go down that road. But it's called the flexible route. It is an opportunity for those that maybe not want to commit to doing 5-day working or whatever it is. You may want to go down that route, but it does take a longer period of time.
Yeah, I mean it's possible, but it generally is maybe people that take up maybe would be for like an illness reason or maternity or something like that, rather than just, you know, just out of choice. Okay, Nicole's asking, when you say 90 minutes travelling, is that by public transport or driving? So I believe when you fill out the form, the SPS form, it asks you if you drive or not, and then it would calculate that based on whether you're a driver or whether you'd be taking public transport.
Yeah.
A question from Ian. About the diploma or master's level coursework, level 10 or 11. Is it the same work but marked differently?
What it is we're looking for more criticality in your writing. So you've got to, so on both assignments, both the diploma and the master's, you have a marking, you have a rubric that you look at, and it tells you every element of the marking criteria. So if you look at the diploma one, it has the criteria for the different grades, and then you look at the masters, it's got, and you look at the masters one, and there's got to be more critical writing involved. And the essay overall is the same title, but there's a requirement to be more critical in your thinking and your reasoning when presenting some of the arguments in your writing. So there is a requirement to be more critical, and you get support before these assignments are put in, before you submit them. But yes, there is a more academic strength in the writing and the presentation of your work.
Okay, that looks like that's all of our questions. We'll just give you a couple of wee minutes in case you want to find any last questions before we go. We are happy to keep taking questions if you do have any. But of course, if you go away and you think of anything, we've got the email addresses in there, so you can copy them over, take a wee note of them. So happy to answer questions. You can send it directly to Keith. He's put his personal email address there, or you can send it to the general HAS email, which I put in as well. And that would come to a member of my team. So either I would get back to you or another member of my team. We also have another event coming up on the 25th, which is our drop-in session. We do that once a month, and it's myself and my colleague, and we just do a wee drop-in session where people come in and just ask us lots of questions. So if you go away today and you're having a wee think about things and then you want to come back and ask more questions, then absolutely come and drop in and see us on the 25th. I'll be happy to answer more questions at that point, or as we say, we're happy to answer via email as well.
What I would say as well, Leah, is that if anybody's got any questions about their academic transcripts or any queries at all, just drop me an email and I'll certainly get back to you. I'll have a look at it, and if you've not, then I'll give you advice what you need to do to top up the credits. I'm more than happy to do that to help you.
Great. So sorry, Ray has come back to say, do the transcripts need to be translated into English. Yeah, so if you can send us a translated copy, that would be helpful. So for now, for checking before you apply, if you want us to check it before you apply, it would be fine if you can translate it yourself. Then that would be all right in the interim. But for like the official documents to meet your conditions of your offer, we need an official translation, you know, from a proper translator. But if you want to speed up that process just so that you can get your application in, that's fine. Sometimes you do have team members, I think, so this question's come from Ray, and you said, I think you said you spoke French. Two of my colleagues speak French, so in that case we could get them to have a quick read over it if need be, if you weren't able to get a full translation of it quickly, we would be able to get them to translate that. We're very fortunate in my team, so we've got 2 people that speak French, and we have someone that speaks Spanish and someone that does a bit of Italian. So unfortunately I'm not multilingual at all, but lots of my colleagues are, so that's nice.
I was going to say as well, Leah, is the application still open for this year? You still
yes. Yes. So it does say on the UCAS website that the deadline was the 29th, but you absolutely can still put your application in for computing. So basically, we'll only close when we have enough people to fill all of the places that we have. So we can never guarantee how long we'll be open or when, you know, it will officially close. So we would always recommend that you get your application in as quickly as possible. However, in previous years, we've been still interviewing people across the summer, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes, but I would always say just get your application in as soon as you can. It gives you peace of mind and gets you time to get yourself organised for anything that you would need to get to us. So Ian's asked, can you post your email? So sorry, Ian, maybe you've missed it. So I'll just copy it again and post it here. And then, so I've posted Keith's again, just at the bottom of the chat function. So the chat's different than the Q&A. If you go into the chat function down the bottom, it says chat, you should be able to see it. And I'll put the general email again.
Someone's asked the question, I still need to find a course on NAT5 Maths. Never got a course this year due to COVID. The NAT5 Maths at Aberdeen, I think.
It does, wait, and I'll just get that. I've got it on my bookmarks because I'm always recommending it to people.
Yeah, it's really handy. It's been really useful. The last 2 or 3 years, it's been really handy.
It is. I'll tell you, Aberdeen must be making a good buck out of this.
Yes.
So many PGDE students. So there's the link there to the Aberdeen website there. I'll put the English one up just in case anyone needs their higher English still. I'll get that over to you as well. Let me just find that. Sorry. I'll just copy that over. So both of those courses there, they're online, fully online, flexible, and you can study at your own pace, as quick or as short as you like, just as long as you take the exam at the end of it. And I think there's various points where you can take the exam throughout the year, and they absolutely meet all the requirements. Ray's asking, so he wants to apply for next year. So if you're thinking about applying for 2022, you can't apply yet. The applications for 2021 will close kind of late August, and then the cycle will open again, usually at the end of September, early October. You need to keep an eye on the UCAS website for that opening back up. It's, you know, that's all related to their own deadlines rather than the university deadline. So it tends to be September, October. And I think that's all of our questions. It's been very nice to chat to everyone today. So glad that you came along and you've asked lots of insightful questions there. And hopefully you all found that useful. Again, can't say it enough, but we're happy to answer any future questions, or if you want us to look at documents, the emails are there. Please email us, and we'd be happy to take a look at that before you apply if you if you want to check that you've got the requirements before you make that application. And as I said, I'll be available for questions on the 25th if you want to join our drop-in session. Well, we can absolutely do that as well, or arrange like Zoom calls, one-to-one, etc. We can do things like that if you need further advice from us.
Okay, thanks very much.